I did not know when the first stones began to wake inside me. I only knew that the noise I once called myself started to thin, and in its place came a hush that felt like scaffolding made of light. I would sit in the early hours when the world still remembered how to whisper and discover a quiet that was not emptiness, but architecture. Arches of stillness spanning from one breath to the next. Columns of patience rising from the floor of my chest to the unseen roof of heaven. In that interior dawn, I sensed a builder moving where I had long feared there was nothing. His tools not made of iron but of consent. His hammer a heartbeat. His measure a mercy that never rushed. The old rooms where I stored explanations and apologies began to feel small. Their ceilings too low for the prayers I could no longer fold into sentences. I wandered past them like a pilgrim who has outgrown the souvenirs of his first conversion and longs now for a home. The walls of my opinions, once painted in bright certainties, showed cracks that did not threaten collapse, but promised light. Through those hairline fissures, a thin gold of mourning seeped, tracing veins across what I had thought was finished. I listened, which is to say, I stopped managing the silence and let it manage me. When the mind tried to inventory grace, the hush gently took away its clipboard. When memory staged its familiar courtroom, the hush turned the bench into a pew. When fear rehearsed the cost of surrender, the hush opened windows that faced eternity and let the air in. I remembered places that had taught me to love sound, the applause that felt like approval wrapped in thunder, the arguments that baptized me in cleverness, the songs that hid my sorrow inside their choruses. I do not despise them now. The cathedral being built within has a chamber for joy and a side altar for lament. But I have begun to prefer the nave, where no music plays, and yet everything sings, where dust dances in a shaft of light as if it has just been named. The floor is the habit of returning. I walk it barefoot, not to perform humility, but because some thresholds can only be crossed without defenses. Each step says yes to a God I cannot see, but somehow recognize in the way the air receives me. The aisles are made of relinquishments, the need to be remarkable, the hunger to be right, the reflex to narrate myself more beautifully than the truth. I lay them in lines like stones I do not wish to trip over anymore. The weight of them does not vanish, but it rearranges into bearing. What once burdened now sustains. The pillars are promises I did not make but find myself upheld by. That love is stronger than the darkness that borrows my name, that waiting is not wasted when it is given to God, that silence is not the absence of speech, but the presence of someone who does not need to shout. I stand between these pillars and feel small in a way that is not humiliation, but freedom, the smallness of a child inside a sanctuary built for revelations that arrive on tiptoe. Everything slows without stopping. Even time is reverent here. The hour hand becomes a monk, and the minute hand a novice, moving quietly about their rounds, faithful to a bell I cannot hear, but somehow honor. When anxiety comes knocking with all its urgent paperwork, the doorkeeper of this inner church smiles and points to the font. "Leave your shoes and your hurry here," he says without words. "Wash your hands of outcomes, your face of other people's eyes." I obey as best I can, which is never perfectly and always enough for the builder who makes excellence out of willingness. The first homily of this place is delivered by light. It speaks in gradients and patience, in the way it spills across stone without demanding applause. In the way it finds the corner, shame keeps and warms it until the fear of being seen becomes the relief of being known. It tells me I do not need to drag my soul into sanctity by force. I need to expose it to love, the way skin exposes itself to mourning. In the transept, where sorrow crosses joy, there is a reliquary of regrets. I used to keep them locked and polished, tokens of a piety that mistook remorse for redemption. Now they lie plain in the glass, the harsh word that bruised a tender day, the pride that wore a rosary like a trophy, the cold refusal to forgive because forgiveness would make me poor. I kneel not to worship them but to witness their transfiguration. A soft radiance gathers around what once accused me, and I hear a silence that says, I can use even this. There is a chapel where gratitude keeps vigil. The candles there are not purchased. They are borrowed from breaths. Each thank you is a flame I did not know I could carry so long. I leave them burning for others I cannot help but can light, trusting that illumination travels further than advice. There is a sacristy where intention dresses itself in simplicity. The vestments are ordinary fabric. Wash the cup, write the note, turn toward the one who speaks. But when I put them on, they fit like a vocation. Holiness retires its costume and returns to work clothes, and the work tastes like bread. I do not always enter this cathedral respectfully. Some days I barge in with a shopping list. Some days I sit on the floor and tell God why what He is building is too slow, too quiet, too gentle for the emergencies I have pronounced. He does not answer as architects answer critics. He draws my attention to the joints I forgot to notice, the hidden reinforcements, the beauty of a curve that will still be beautiful when my mood is not. I build to outlast your storms, the silence suggests, and to shelter others when your weather changes. I learn to bless what I do not yet understand. I learn to trust that foundations begin where my proofs end. Outside, the world continues to audition for my belonging. Its banners are bright, its drums convincing. It offers me towers that rise faster than chapels, results that photograph better than prayers, certainties that do not require love. I am not immune. I feel the pull. But the Inner Cathedral has taught me a weight that counters spectacle, the gravity of truth in small obediences. And so I return, sometimes dragging my reluctance by the hand, sometimes carried by a hunger that chooses for me. Here, my failures do not disqualify me. They become material. The builder sets them like rough-hewn blocks in the walls, their edges still honest. Mortar is made of mercy ground with patience. Even the gaps preach. Not everything must touch for a structure to hold. Grace spans distances I cannot. I begin to sense a hidden blueprint, guiding where I yield and where I stand. A plan not drawn by severity, but by love that knows the load-bearing capacities of the human heart. In the apse, where the curve gathers the gaze and returns it to the center, there is an altar I did not build. I bring to it the little I have not already spent on self-defense, the surplus of silence, a few loaves of attention, the fish of my willingness to be interrupted. And the builder makes Eucharist of them. He breaks and multiplies, not to feed a crowd I can count, but to nourish a future I will never see. I leave with less possession and more provision, empty-handed in the way that leaves the hands available for blessing. As days braid themselves into a season, I notice how the acoustics change. Words spoken in anger sound wrong in here. They come back to me looking homeless. Plans drafted from fear lose their momentum at the crossing, where love meets the truth and refuses to become a strategy. Even laughter learns reverence, no longer the kind that ridicules, but the kind that recognizes delight as a language God speaks fluently. There are no stained glass windows yet, and yet there are. Every memory that once broke, now telling a story in color. A childhood room where loneliness slept under the bed, becomes a panel of deep blues pierced by a small star. A friendship lost to misunderstanding transforms into a jeweled mosaic of reds and greens, sorrow and hope soldered with forgiveness. When sun passes through them, my past is not erased, but translated into praise. I do not curate which panels will shine. I let the day choose. Over time, I stop asking whether I'm praying well and start asking whether I'm being built. The measure shifts from eloquence to openness, from intensity to endurance. Some mornings, I feel nothing but the coolness of stone. It is enough. The cathedral does not tremble at my lack of fireworks. It shelters me till the weather passes, and in that shelter, I learn the difference between barrenness and winter. Other mornings, a faint warmth rises with the light, as if some unseen window has opened, and the builder has stepped in early to work before I wake. I rise quieter than I slept. I carry the hush like a cloak into rooms that forgot what kindness sounds like. I fail and return. I return and learn. The nave lengthens by inches no eye can measure. The roof grows not by addition, but by ascent of trust. If you asked for a photo, I would only show you an ordinary face, made gentler by ordinary light. But if you stood beside me in the stillness and put your palm against the heart's inside wall, I think you would feel it. The subtle tremor of a sanctuary being raised where despair once laid its bricks, the almost audible hymn of someone at work, and the long, patient sound of stone becoming home. One evening, as I sat within that quiet space, the air around me began to shimmer, not with spectacle, but with presence. It was not a vision I could photograph, nor a miracle I could explain. It was the kind of revelation that requires both humility and courage just to remain in it. The silence thickened until it became almost tangible, a soft pressure against the edges of my soul. And then it happened. Light began to move through the stone. It didn't blaze or burn. It breathed. It poured from every crack, every imperfection, every uneven surface that I had once despised. I realized, trembling, that God was not fixing me. He was inhabiting me. Every flaw became a window, every fracture, a way for light to enter. I had spent years polishing my surfaces, trying to appear smooth and symmetrical before the divine, only to discover that the luminous presence I longed for could not pass through perfection. The light needed openings. It loved what was incomplete. It cherished the gaps through which grace could sing. And in that moment, I understood that holiness is not seamlessness. Holiness is permeability. It is the courage to let God pass through you. The light rose, not like dawn breaking over a landscape, but like memory rising from the bones. It carried no sound, no command, only the deep knowing that everything hidden was being named, and everything named was being loved. The pain I thought would always define me began to glow from within, as if each sorrow had been secretly rehearsing resurrection. My shame melted into water, my fear softened into clay, my anger dissolved like smoke into the roof of heaven. I felt exposed and safe at once. The cathedral was alive, and I was its echo. The pillars shimmered like ribs filled with breath. The ceiling expanded until it seemed to merge with eternity itself. And in that endlessness, I heard, not with my ears, but with the very marrow of my being, a voice without words saying, "I build where you surrender." It was not the first time I had heard God, but it was the first time I did not argue. I realized that surrender was not loss, it was architecture. It was how God raised the vaults of trust inside me. The light moved inward, then outward, filling every corridor of thought, every hidden stairway of desire. I saw the patterns, How sorrow had been shaping capacity, how waiting had been widening space, how even disappointment had been carving depth for something vast enough to hold joy. What I called delay was really preparation. What I called failure was scaffolding. What I called emptiness was foundation. The revelation was not spectacular, it was structural. The builder had never stopped. My impatience had only made me blind to the construction happening quietly beneath the noise. And now, in the still radiance, I could see it all at once. The map of mercy, the geometry of grace. Each beam of light was a promise kept, each stone a story redeemed. And I was standing at the intersection of heaven's patience and earth's need, trembling with gratitude too pure for language. I wanted to stay there forever, but eternity has a rhythm. It flows in, it flows out. The light that filled me began to move beyond me, seeping through my eyes, my voice, my gestures. I became porous to love. I found myself praying without words, blessing without effort, forgiving without strategy. There was no performance in it, no audience, no applause, only participation. The builder was using me to build elsewhere. In the stillness, I sensed the walls of this inner cathedral expanding outward, invisible but real, connecting to others being raised in secret. Somewhere, another soul was sitting in silence, and the same light was moving through their cracks. Somewhere else, a heart was breaking open and not closing again, and the fragments were aligning with mine. We were not separate sanctuaries, but one vast structure of mercy under construction across eternity. Each person a living stone in a temple built without hands. I saw how suffering joined us, how forgiveness fused us, how love was the mortar binding us into one. No doctrine could contain it. No border could divide it. The divine architecture was too generous for exclusivity. I realized that the walls of heaven are not walls at all. They are thresholds. And I felt the thrill of being both inside and outside at once, like breath in lungs that belong to a larger body. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the light gentled, settling into the quiet rhythm of being. The brilliance folded itself into simplicity again, like music returning to a single note. The air cooled, the stones sighed, and I understood that the miracle was not over. It had only changed volume. God builds loudly enough to awaken, softly enough to remain. I stayed there in the half-light, not speaking, not thinking, just belonging. For the first time, I was not afraid of silence ending, because I had learned that silence does not end. It continues inside sound. It is the pulse beneath every word that loves. I wanted to weep, not out of sorrow, but recognition. This was what I had been seeking all along. Not answers, not triumphs, but a presence that did not need to prove itself to be real. I touched the wall nearest to me. It was warm. The stone, once lifeless, hummed faintly with heartbeat. The same pulse echoed in my chest. I realized with sudden wonder that there was no boundary between the builder and the building. He was not outside constructing me. He was within, constructing himself in me. Every prayer I had ever spoken was his echo returning home. Every breath was his chisel. Every silence was his blueprint. I wanted to say thank you, but gratitude felt too small. Instead, I breathed, and that was enough. The breath itself became prayer, and prayer became light again, and light became the slow, sacred heartbeat of God at work. Outside, the world was still breaking news. Inside, creation was beginning again. The old noise would return soon, but it would not rule me anymore. For now, I sat in the half-dark glow, listening to the quiet construction of grace, the invisible hands shaping eternity within dust. When morning came, the light was softer, diffused through the invisible glass of grace. The silence that had once seemed empty now felt inhabited, alive with the quiet rhythm of a presence that had never left. I moved through my day differently, as though each action carried the weight of liturgy. Washing a cup became an act of purification. Opening a door became an invocation. Even breathing felt sacramental, a participation in the hidden architecture that God was still building. I no longer tried to hold the moment of revelation. I let it hold me. There was a humility in this new rhythm, a peace that didn't need to be named to be known. The world outside resumed its ordinary noises, its small urgencies, its bright distractions. But something within me had shifted. The inner cathedral did not vanish when I walked into traffic or conversation. It expanded to include them. I realized that holiness was not a place to retreat to, but a way of seeing that transforms the ordinary into sanctuary. Every interaction became an altar. Every person a window of God's unfinished creation. The builder hadn't stopped. He had simply invited me to work with him, to be his apprentice in small mercies and slow forgiveness. When anger knocked again, it found no echo, only a silence that listened until the anger wore itself out. When pride whispered its old arguments, the echo returned as laughter. The architecture of grace had changed the acoustics of my soul. Even pain sounded different, less like accusation, more like invitation. And so I learned to bless what I could not understand, to let mystery have its room within me. There are still days when the construction feels stalled, when the scaffolding creaks under the weight of disappointment. There are still moments when I look at the unfinished walls and think, surely by now, it should be complete. But then the light returns in some ordinary gesture, a kindness offered, a tear forgiven, a silence kept, and I remember. Cathedrals are not rushed. They are built over centuries of patience and faith. And though time measures my body, eternity measures the work. The builder does not hurry. He's not late. He builds to last beyond me. The beauty of it is that I am both the project and the participant, the temple and the tool. Each act of love lays another stone. Each surrender raises another arch. I will not see the completion in this lifetime, and that no longer feels tragic. It feels holy, because the point was never perfection. The point was participation. One evening, I found myself back in the quiet, the air still warm from prayer. I noticed how the walls had darkened slightly with age, as if absorbing the countless whispers that had passed through me. Dust floated in thin beams of light, each particle a sermon about persistence. I closed my eyes and saw, not stone, but breath, the very breath of God holding everything together. The distinction between sacred and secular dissolved like mist. My chest rose and fell, and I realized I was still inside the same architecture. It was me. It was everything. It was him. And in that understanding, something deep settled. The cathedral was never a destination. It was a becoming. The builder builds in silence because silence is the only language wide enough for his love. He does not rush because eternity is patient. He does not shout because truth does not need to argue to be real. He simply builds, one heartbeat at a time. I will fail again. I will forget again. I will walk through noise and shadows and wonder if the holy ever truly took root. But even in forgetting, the walls will hold. Even in breaking, the foundation will remain. Because the builder does not abandon his own architecture. He finishes what he begins. And one day, when all the scaffolds fall away and the final silence descends, I believe we will hear it. The quiet thunder of completion, the sound of love echoing through every stone that ever consented to be shaped. It will not be loud. It will be like a sigh made of light. And in that sigh, every soul will understand at last. The cathedral was never outside us. It was being built, quietly, all along,